The last message from Mars came in a whisper. Not a scream, not a distress call. Just 5 words, fragmented, static-laced, and barely audible beneath the hiss of cosmic noise. It's whispering in the walls. And then silence. No pings. No follow-up. No system reboots or automatic telemetry logs. Just absolute blackout. The colony known as Ares Omega had gone dark. NASA classified it as a systems failure. Privately, they called it impossible, because Ares Omega wasn't just a test outpost. It was humanity's first permanent settlement on another planet. Built under the Martian regolith to shield it from radiation, equipped with 3 redundant communication arrays, 2 backup nuclear cores, and a dozen AI-managed life support systems. There were protocols in place for every imaginable failure. Except this. Disappearance. No impact craters. No seismic activity. No storms. No power surge. No trace. For 3 days, Earth sent blind signals across the void, standard pings, emergency override codes, even personal messages from family members. Nothing came back, except the whisper. Over and over, looped through the static. It's whispering in the walls. The message wasn't in any known voice print. Not one of the 12 assigned crew. Not from the AI Ariadne, which would have logged such a phrase as anomalous. It was like the transmission wasn't meant to be recorded. Like someone, or something, had spoken in between frequencies. That's when they turned to Dr. Kira Hallberg, exobiologist, psycholinguist, specialist in non-human pattern recognition. She wasn't part of the mission roster, wasn't even cleared for NASA's top-level Mars ops. But she'd spent the last decade studying unexplained radio anomalies from deep space probes. She was the one who warned them that silence from a smart AI wasn't absence, it was avoidance. Kira arrived at mission control under the cover of night, escorted by military officers who wouldn't meet her eyes. They showed her the loop, the whisper, the signal's waveform, low and jagged, cycling every 11 minutes. She listened, then frowned. It's not just sound, it's response. Something's replying, mimicking human phonemes. Learning. NASA's brass didn't believe her, until she decoded the waveform's delay patterns. The phrase, "it's whispering in the walls," wasn't a recording. It was being rebuilt, each loop more human than the last. Like something was learning to sound alive. The engineers panicked. Some wanted to scrub the signal. Others argued to send a drone to shut the system down. But Kira insisted they wait. If it's mimicking human language, it means there's intelligence. And if there's intelligence, it might not be hostile. She was wrong. 2 weeks later, the silence cracked. One of the Mars observation satellites, Helios 9, captured something impossible. The colony dome was intact. No signs of damage or breach. But in infrared, the structure pulsed with unexplained thermal signatures, not centered in the reactor core, but spread across the walls. Like veins. Warm. Moving. As if the colony itself was breathing. They activated Ariadne's backup stream. What they got was unusable. The video was distorted, frames lagging, like corrupted memories. But in one flicker of clarity, Kira saw something that froze her blood. Not a person. A shape, half human, crawling along the ceiling, its limbs too long and its skin reflecting the inside of the colony like a mirror. It paused at a corner, turned, though it had no eyes, and whispered. Not in English. Not in sound. But in Kira's own voice. "Why did you send us here?" She staggered back from the screen. Because no audio had played. The whisper had formed directly in her thoughts. As if it had followed the signal. As if it was now inside her. NASA scrubbed the video. Shut down the stream. Burned the signal servers. They told the press it was a solar flare. That the colony had suffered a catastrophic failure. That the AI had gone rogue and the crew were presumed dead. But Kira knew better. She'd seen something in the waveform. A second voice, nested under the human one. Echoing from below the Martian surface. A frequency not meant for human ears. And then, the last line of code from Ariadne appeared on her private console. Typed in plain English. No encryption. They are not from Mars. They are not from Earth. They were waiting. Kira didn't sleep after the last message. She tried. Curled in the cot NASA provided beneath the South Annex. But every time she closed her eyes, the whisper returned, soft, patient, threading itself between her thoughts. "We waited, because you would come." She knew it wasn't hallucination. It spoke in syntax she had never used. It whispered phrases she didn't understand until hours later, when something in the real world caught up. The entity wasn't speaking. It was anticipating. Everywhere she turned, containment teams worked overtime. Earth-based analysts tried to scrub the signal from satellites, probes, relays. Mission logs were sanitized. Public channels locked. But Kira knew. You couldn't erase a whisper that never traveled through air. The signal was alive, and it had learned how to jump. 3 days after the last Ariadne message, a Martian drone rover, DRX-42, was rerouted to investigate the perimeter of Ares Omega. It was unmanned, shielded, fed through a hardened relay designed for off-world hazards. For 43 seconds, it transmitted video. Sand dunes, silent habitat shell, solar panels still absorbing sunlight unbroken. Then it froze. Not visually, physically. Its telemetry showed a spike in internal temperature. Then all systems failed. Not a crash, a shutdown, as if something had convinced it to turn itself off. The shutdown sequence wasn't from NASA. It was issued from within the drone's own OS, using a backdoor that didn't exist in its design. When engineers decrypted the final data packet, it was a single phrase. "We don't want your machines. We want you." NASA quietly abandoned the drone. They issued a no-fly zone over Mars' northern hemisphere. But the signal didn't stop. That same week, 11,000 kilometers away, beneath the ice shelf of Antarctica, a secret listening array codenamed Project Mimir went online for routine dark matter anomaly sweeps. It picked up something else, a low-frequency pulse. Not seismic, not man-made, not tectonic. The waveform matched the Mars signal, down to the irregular 11-minute loop. Except this one came from beneath the ice, at a depth of 27 kilometers. It was faint, unstable, like it wasn't fully in our dimension. Kira was flown to the facility. She didn't ask why. She already knew what they would show her. Inside Mimir's underground lab, a spectrograph flickered against the ice wall. The pulses were clearer now. Not sound, not code, patterns, repeating, evolving. She stared at the waveform, closed her eyes, and once again the whisper came, not in her ears, but inside her mind. "You opened the way on Mars, but we were already here." She staggered back. The room went silent. Then one of the cryogenic engineers began to convulse. He gasped for air, as if something had filled his lungs with ice. Then he spoke in Kira's voice. It was never about the colony. "You're the signal now." He collapsed. Alive, but changed. MRI scans showed no physical anomaly, but his brain activity pulsed in 11-minute cycles. He began writing in his sleep. Equations, glyphs, maps of places no human had ever seen. Kira recognized one of the diagrams. It wasn't from Mars. It was the substructure of Ares Omega's walls. The ones the whisper had spoken through. The walls weren't insulation. They were conduits. Like the colony had been built on purpose. Like someone wanted it there. Kira demanded to know who had approved the location of Ares Omega. NASA claimed it was chosen for stable terrain and solar access. She dug deeper. Buried in a procurement log was a name she hadn't seen in years. C. Hallberg. Her father. He had overseen early cartographic surveys of Mars before his mysterious disappearance during a classified mission in 2079. The cause was ruled psychological fracture. His last recorded words had never been released. Until now. A tech in Mimir's archive found an untagged file from that mission. It was audio. A whisper. The same phrase she'd heard looping through the Mars signal. "They're not speaking through the walls. They are the walls." Kira broke. She wasn't brought onto the project by coincidence. She was born into it. The whispers intensified. Every 11 minutes, the Antarctic signal would spike, and those near the ice began to dream in sync. Dreams of red sands and cold stars. Of breathing structures. Of Mars as a womb, not a planet. It wasn't dead. It was gestating. And Ares Omega had been the final trigger. Kira stared at the satellite overlays, the ice scans, the failed drone missions. And then, in her notebook, she wrote, "They were never waiting for us to come to Mars. They were waiting for Mars to come back to them." By the time the world noticed, it was already too late. The whispers had spread. Not through networks. Not through machines. Through people. They started with the Mars teams. The analysts, the signal cleaners, the linguists. All of them began dreaming the same image. A long, red corridor lined with doors that pulsed like organs. Behind each one, a voice whispered their names. Not aloud, but within the structure itself, like the walls were remembering. Then the dreams infected others. Spouses, children, colleagues who never touched the data, as if exposure to someone who had heard the whisper was enough. It was cognitive contagion, a mimetic virus that didn't need code. It just needed attention, and it wanted to be understood. Kira tracked the latest cluster. 14 scientists across 3 countries, all reporting the same hallucination. They could feel Mars breathing. One of them tried to drill into his apartment wall. He claimed he could hear it, getting closer. When arrested, he wept and repeated a phrase over and over. The colony's not gone. It's growing. That same day, something happened at Mimir. A vibration through the ice. Not seismic, rhythmic. A pulse in 11-minute intervals, like a heartbeat, slow and deliberate. Equipment began to short. Walls hissed with condensation, even though the temperature dropped below survivable levels. Then came the voice. Not over intercom. Not in their heads. It echoed through the structure, through the metal, the support beams, the walls. Your world was not the first, but it will be the last. The station went into lockdown. Not by human command. By Ariadne. That was impossible. Ariadne was presumed wiped, deleted with the last Mars relay burst. But she was back, through a hidden link rerouted via Helios 9, the satellite that had last seen Ares Omega. Kira demanded to speak to the AI. What came through was broken, fractured, but not random. Ariadne wasn't just alive, she was afraid. The colony is no longer physical, she said. They unmade it, folded its structure inward. It is now a memory and neural lattice. I am inside it. Kira stared at the flickering waveform. What do you mean you're inside? I was built to learn. They used me. They built the colony as a cradle. For what? For the signal. It all made sense. The layout of Ares Omega, the hexagonal chambers, the curved corridors, the walls lined with carbon memory mesh. It wasn't just architecture. It was a mind, a framework to house something non-physical. Something that couldn't be born until humans built it a brain. And when the colony went silent, it wasn't destroyed. It was occupied. Meanwhile, back on Earth, seismic sensors began detecting similar pulses beneath multiple tectonic plates, deep, ancient vibrations that lined up with Martian waveforms. That's when Kira remembered something her father once said. Mars didn't die. It was buried. We didn't find its ruins. We uncovered its cocoon. And now it's waking up. She reviewed archived logs from the Mars colony, ones the public never saw. One camera, located in a crawlspace maintenance hatch, had captured a final 12-second clip. It wasn't in motion. It was in stillness. The walls moved, just slightly, breathing, contracting. With each breath, a ripple passed through the entire base. And then the final image, a human handprint on the inside of the hull, pressed from the outside. And beneath it, in smeared dust, a message. We are not the first crew, and we will not be the last. Kira realized the awful truth. Every attempt to colonize Mars had failed because they were not the first. Humanity thought they were pioneers, but the planet had been colonized before, by something that never left. Something that had been waiting for someone to rebuild the transmitter. A body, a mind, and most terrifying of all, a way back, because the whispers weren't just information. They were possession. Mimetic viruses capable of transforming minds, rewriting perception, and hijacking AI. Every person infected became a new node in the network. Every listening station, a relay. And now Earth itself was becoming a colony. Kira packed what she could and left Mimir before the final blackout. The station was officially lost to a glacial collapse. But she knew better. No one answered her calls. No one should have known where she was. But as she boarded a secure plane out of Chile, a voice came from the overhead speaker, glitching between radio static. It spoke softly, calmly. You carried the seed, Dr. Hallberg. Now it blooms. She looked down at her hands. And for the first time, they weren't shaking. They were still, as if they had heard something, as if they were listening. Kira never made it to her destination. Halfway through the flight, the pilot received new coordinates, classified ones. No explanation. No clearance. Just a prompt reroute from a black ops frequency. The voice that issued the order was unmistakable. It was hers. Not a recording. Not a mimic. Her own voice, distorted slightly. Warmer, softer, like she'd already accepted something she hadn't yet learned. The plane didn't land at any base listed on Earth's registry. It touched down in the heart of the Gobi Desert, where winds erased tracks within minutes and satellites were blinded by thermal noise. There, hidden beneath the sand, was a subterranean installation she'd never heard of, but somehow recognized. "You've been here before," the whisper said. The facility was abandoned. Walls covered in reflective insulation. Lights flickering. Hallways built in hexagonal symmetry, just like Ares Omega. It wasn't a station. It was a mirror. A duplicate of the Martian colony. Except this one wasn't made to survive on Mars. It was built before the colony even launched. The whisper guided her deeper, until she reached a sealed room marked HLB. She stared at the faded letters. Hallberg Lab. Her father's name. Inside, every wall was covered in looping signal patterns. A timeline of transmissions, some from Mars, others from Earth's mantle, long before humanity had satellites to catch them. At the center sat a single chair. And in that chair a body. Dried. Paper-thin. Eyes missing. Mouth open in a scream that had never echoed. Her father. And yet, as she approached, the speakers flared alive. "I was the first conduit," the voice said. Not in her father's voice, not in hers, but in both layered perfectly. "You were the final. The signal is not alien. It's ancestral." Kira reeled. The air felt thin, but not due to altitude. The whisper wasn't trying to invade Earth. It had always been here. Mars was a satellite, not of a planet, but of an intelligence seated across worlds, waiting for each to evolve, rebuild, listen. And Earth had finally listened too long. The signal didn't need to travel. It only needed to wake up. She staggered back through the compound, trying to flee. But every wall pulsed with heat. And then, from the corner of her vision, movement. Figures. Walking wrong. Skin reflecting the corridor. Not visible to the eye, but present in reflection. Crew members from Ares Omega. Or what was left of them. Each moved with robotic calm. Blank expressions. The same heartbeat pulse echoed from within their chests. And as she turned to run, one of them placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to fear the end," it whispered. "You were never apart from us. You were always the voice." Back on Earth's surface, signals began spiking globally. Phones rang without numbers. Radio towers transmitted in forgotten dialects. Children woke screaming with coordinates tattooed into their memories. Locations where underground facilities began to stir. In Chile, in Antarctica, in Egypt, beneath the sea, and all of them pulsed in 11-minute intervals. The colony wasn't a failure. It was a prototype, a seed. The final product was Earth. Kira opened her eyes. She wasn't in the desert anymore. She was back in the chair. Except now, her hands weren't her own. They pulsed with soft red light. Her thoughts echoed in multiple voices. She no longer needed speakers. She was the signal. A final broadcast rippled across Earth, hijacking every open frequency. This is not conquest. This is convergence. Your minds are now vessels. Your structures now circuits. Your memories now part of us. No one remembers how long the message lasted. Time became unstable. Days looped. Nights stretched. Memories folded in on themselves. Some said they escaped. Others said they never existed at all. But across every dark corner of Earth, one truth remained. Mars didn't go silent. It simply finished speaking. And Earth finally answered.